You've successfully sold and exited your business for an undisclosed 7-figure and arguably life-changing amount of money. You're 31 years old and you're now successfully retired.
We thought, right, the channel we're going to go down is paid advertising, and whatever it takes to make this work, we're going to do it. We went in there with the mentality of, this is a long-term game. There starts to be this almost like halo effect. Whatever room I would go into, someone would come up to me and say, I've seen your ad. And then they speak to me in person, then they become a customer. Then, to be honest, it kind of feels like a blur because it's happened all so quickly, but we were off to the races at that point. Yeah, so day one, I knew that I wanted to exit the business. I felt like I'd lost the fire in my belly, and I wanted that back. And we finally got the deal done 1 minute to midnight, the night before the budget. It was chaos. One of the best phone calls I ever had was from my lawyer at 10 past midnight saying, done, you can go to bed now.
Have you said this percentage is my netting or my safety net?
My wife will hate me for saying this, but I would drain that money down to zero if I had
Really?
to. I will quite happily come on this podcast if this business fails and I lose every penny I've invested in it and tell everybody that that's what's happened.
Right, okay.
Because
hopefully we don't hold you to that. Hopefully we hold you to the complete opposite of that, where we're getting you on regularly as it goes.
I hope so.
Welcome to the Business Playbook. I'm Jak Carlin from Alleyoop. We're a performance marketing agency. The Business Playbook is brought to you by Alleyoop, and we are sponsored today by A1 SEO, putting you at the top of Google. This is Gavin Bell, founder of Yatter, successfully exited from Yatter. We like to start the podcast, Gavin, with asking everyone the same question. I'm a big believer that everyone's winging it and no one's actually got their shit together. But you, in my notes, you were the founder of Yatter, which is a PPC and social agency similar to my business, Alleyoop. You had a team of 12. You were servicing over 70 clients. You had a 7-figure turnover. You've successfully sold and exited your business for an undisclosed 7-figure and arguably life-changing amount of money. I know you can't tell us that yet. You're 31 years old and you're now successfully retired. Have you got your shit together?
Absolutely not, Jak. I think we live in a society, a world where everybody feels like the need to look like they have everything together, but the reality is nobody has everything together. And I think the successful people, though, what sets successful people apart is their ability to make decisions and progress despite not having everything together. So feeling comfortable in the uncomfortable.
100%.
So I try my best to do that.
I think well over 90% of the people we've had on the podcast have answered with a negative to that they've not. There's definitely even some people who've grown huge businesses and they're like, no, we're winging it the whole way. Obviously, one of the things that can help that is building systems and processes, and I know that's something that you're big on. So I think probably quite keen to touch on that, but let's go back to the kind of start of your business journey. So you've been in business for about 10 years, or you had been in business for about 10 years.
Yep.
We're going to come on to what's next for you as well. So if you're interested in what's happening with Gavin now, kind of post Yatter, we will be touching on it here, and we'll definitely be due on episode 2 in a few months' time. But can you tell us a bit about how you kind of got started in business?
Yeah, I moved from the Shetland Islands down to Manchester when I was 18. There was a business course down there, the Peter Jones Enterprise Academy.
Yes.
And that course you have to go with a business idea. And I went down there with an idea of a corporate wellbeing firm, which was essentially trying to make employees happier and healthier in work with personal trainers, essentially. And it was a terrible idea, total failure. And made zero.
Why is that a terrible idea, though? It sounds like an all right idea.
Well, the idea is behind it was probably good. The execution was terrible.
It's funny because Eddie Hearn, I'm a massive Eddie Hearn matchroom boxing fan. He has employed a PT for the business who his job is to basically just service the team within the business. He was his PT, but he brought him in and has rolled him out to the entire staff. So and he said it's the best investment he's made in the business.
So that would have been the smart way to do it. The way that I did it was taking a PT in to do fitness sessions with staff, but the staff were in their suits and ties at the time.
Okay.
And it wasn't a good business. But from that business, I created a lot of relationships with personal trainers, nutritionists, and long story short, sort of realized that they were really bad at marketing. And being, of an age where I've grown up with social media, I saw there was a gap where I could go in and help these guys market themselves a bit better.
Right.
So I did that, and we started off a company called Blue Cliff Media, a social media management business, where we would essentially post on social media on behalf of businesses. And it was a business where we were getting paid by the number of posts, not by the impact that we had on that business. And I quickly realized that in order for us to be able to retain clients, I needed to be able to illustrate that we're having an impact on their profit. And so that sort of led me into the world of paid advertising. And I set myself the goal of becoming like the go-to Facebook ads guy in the UK. That was the sort of vision I had.
Okay.
So I started building a personal brand, producing content, and
that was still on the Blue Cliff Media at that time.
Well, it sort of got a bit confusing. There was like Blue Cliff Media, and then there was Mr. Gavin Bell, and there was the Facebook ads guy. And I changed the company name at one point to Fat Pony for about 3 months for no real reason. It was all a bit messy.
Right. So the first time I became aware of you were Blue Cliff Media. This would have been 2014, 2015 max. My mate went to work for Social Chain in Manchester, and you popped up on what was the original, what is now Diary of the CEO, but it was the original, like, behind the scenes of Social Chain, Stephen Bartlett's podcast. You popped up in that on an episode of that, and he was like, "This guy from Edinburgh," and I was like, "Who the fuck's this guy?" And then that's when I became aware of you and started kind of following you.
Yeah.
So that was, what would that have been, 2014?
Yeah, it must have been about then. That was the glory days of Facebook ads, where you could target. What I used to do is I would target companies or employees that worked at companies and try and get them as a client. Or in that case, I was doing like a weekly vlog, and I thought it'd be great to go and vlog Social Chain, because they were all, they were everywhere back then. And so I targeted employees of Social Chain with an ad, and the same day.
So were you calling them out specifically and then targeting them?
Exactly, yeah. So I used to be able to say employees of Social Chain,
right?
Run an ad, and then the ad was like, "Hey, employees of Social Chain, I'd love to come down to the office and meet you."
So Ryan from Audrey told us to do exactly that on LinkedIn, and he called them sniper ads. And what he would do is he would target one specific because on LinkedIn you can target one person, and then you can target I think 300 is the minimum. So he would target like Gavin Bell, and then he would target like 299 completely like not relevant people in Russia or whatever, right? And then he would just do an ad that was saying, "Gavin Bell, we want to talk to you," and he would run that ad to 299 irrelevant people and you.
Yep.
And so he'd done exactly that, but
Smart.
he would do it as to one person and pinpoint one person.
Yeah, well, but I mean, back then you could do that on Facebook, because you would target employees of Social Chain. There's maybe 50 of them.
Yeah.
And if you know the person's age and all that sort of stuff,
you could then whittle it down to the one person. That's brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good.
So that was great. They got back to me the same day. Went down there, had a great day with them, and we ended up running ads for Stephen Bartlett back then.
Cool. Right. So that was on the Blue Cliff Media, and he said it went to you had the Facebook ads guy, you had Mr. Gavin Bell. What was Fat Pony?
So there was a period where we had Blue Cliff Media, and I was building my personal brand. And so everybody that I was dealing with and had heard of me was through the personal brand, but there was this sort of like Blue Cliff Media brand sitting doing nothing. Yeah. And I hated the name. It was really corporate. And so we thought, my wife loves horses, Fat Pony, let's actually rebrand. And, I think it was during the sort of golden age of stupid agency names, where it was like, whatever. So we did that. And
I'll name some. Give us some stupid agency names. Call them out.
Oh, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but if you take like any descriptive word.
Can we beep these? I'll name a few, and then we can just go beep, beep, beep.
Purple elephant, any sort of describer, and then animal or weird things, probably an agency out there somewhere.
Right, cool.
So we went with Fat Pony, and it did nothing with the brand. That was just a sort of limited company behind Mr. Gavin Bell.
Yep.
And then I sort of had a realization just before or during the pandemic that I wasn't building something that I could exit one day. It was all my own personal brand.
Yep.
which you can't sell, obviously. And so we made the sort of grown-up decision to, right, let's invest in a branding agency. Let's create a proper brand. Let's create a business that we're going to build
So you
and sell.
outsourced it to a branding agency?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Spent a huge amount of money. At the time, it was sort of like eye-watering money on coming up with a name, the branding, the brand guidelines, everything.
Right.
So I could say, or because I knew personally if I didn't commit to spending a significant amount of money on creating that brand, I wouldn't commit to it.
Right,
Because
okay.
the evidence...
And you went all in on it?
Yeah, the evidence to myself was that, you've gone Fat Pony, Blue Cliff Media, Mr. Gavin Bell, Facebook ads, guys all over the place. So I had to make a commitment to myself that you're doing this properly this time.
Right, okay. So that's where Yatters came from.
Yep.
What's the thought process behind the name?
To be totally honest, it was, I hate coming up with business names. It's one of the things that I just hate the most. And so I outsourced it to the branding agency as well. And they pitched us 3 different names, and Yatter was the favourite one. I wanted something that was short, snappy, memorable, easy to say.
Yep.
And of course, the domain name had to be available.
So we went through this process when we were naming Alleyoop, right? So when you said about stupid agency names and like an animal or whatever, we had Bold Gorilla, that was one. We had RP1, which, so I got it down to like the final 2. The other thing was we were going to rip off Made Brave, and it was going to be called Done Bold or something like that. That was just like Made Brave, Done Bold. It was a complete rip off. Then we looked at, so we whittled it down to the last 2. It was RP1, which is actually, if people were to Google what RP1 is, it's a type of rocket fuel. And I thought that was very clever.
Yep.
And an Alleyoop is like a basketball reference to setting someone else up for a slam dunk. That's what we went for. The amount of times that people either call it Alleyoop. Vivian's got me saved in his phone as Jak Alleyoop, and he's yet to change it. And the amount of people that don't get it or are like, what is it that sounds a bit silly? But I think it's
good. It's memorable. I don't know how people can get it wrong.
It needs to be. That's what it needs to be. If they don't know what the actual reference is or what it means, once you explain it to them, most people go, very clever, right, good. But it's the original, like, getting it through. When you phone someone and say it's Jak from Alleyoop, they're like, so that
surprises me.
Good. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
So Yatter. At that point, when you went to Yatter, how many people was it? Was it you? Did you have freelancers? How do you go from, or how did you go from being a freelancer to building a team? How are you getting clients? Like, talk us through the process of building that business at the very start.
Yeah, so just before Yatter was born, I went through a stage of launching coaching programs through my own personal brand. And the team there was myself and Dave, who was handling all the sales.
Yep.
And what we would do is we basically run a Facebook group to get people into a 5-day challenge, and then we would sell them onto a coaching program where I essentially taught them how to create a funnel and run their own ads.
And so that was for coaches?
That was for just businesses that wanted to do it themselves,
cool.
yeah. And so at the start of Yatter, it was essentially me and then Dave, who was handling the sales calls.
Right, okay.
And we...
and it was all your knowledge. You were doing all the delivery. You were doing, like, you were the person who could actually deliver and you're having to do that. You were basically the lead magnet, if you like, because you're the front facing, but you were doing the delivery.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the people would come to me. I would say speak to Dave because I don't like doing sales. Dave would sell them, and then they'd come back to me to do the delivery. And
what do you not like about sales?
I get frustrated when I have lots of things in my diary, and having back-to-back sales calls in my diary of 50% of the people are a waste of time or going to say no, just feels like a total waste of time to me, and I don't enjoy it. Okay. So I thought, outsource it. I can get some more joy into my day and have somebody that's actually better at doing the selling than me.
It's funny because I've done the direct opposite. I love the sales. I can't do the delivery. Can't build the campaign. People there who know what they're doing, but if I could be on sales calls and then and client management and sales, like predominantly all day, that's a good day for me.
Yeah.
It's funny how, like, similar businesses, just completely different styles of...
Yeah, totally. And I think founders have to get better at doing that, understanding where they're most effective, but also 2, what they enjoy the most. Because if you get stuck doing things that you don't enjoy, you're going to resent the business at the end of the day. So you have to try and find that sweet spot of, like, effectiveness and happiness, joy.
Okay. So what about if you are the best person at a particular task? Like say, for example, if I'm the best person to sell Alleyoop services, but it's not the part that I enjoy, but I'm twice as effective as the next person, what would be your advice to somebody in that situation?
So what you have to do there's a stage in everything where you're 10 out of 10. So your selling is 10 out of 10, and you're going to have to delegate that to someone else at some point, because your business will only be able to scale to the capacity that you have unless you do so. And you have to be comfortable outsourcing what you're doing 10 out of 10 to someone that might do it 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
But understanding that 8 out of 10 is far more scalable than, or multiple people at 8 out of 10
5 of them,
is far more scalable than one person doing 10 out of 10. And then the way you do it is you process and systemize it. So take every single bit of you do, nuance, script, whatever it is, and create a process and system for someone else to go and follow. Mm-hmm. And then something that a lot of people don't like to do, but role play.
Right, okay, talk to me.
So there's something we did a lot at Yatter actually, was practicing role play with client communications. Because if you've got somebody, if you're expecting a new salesperson to come on and sell as good as you,
yep.
you simply can't expect them to sell as good as you, because the first time they go into that call, that's their first time.
Yeah.
So how are they prepared to be able to work through objections and challenges and nuances in the market that you've sold? You've been on hundreds of sales calls, so you probably know exactly how they go, all the objections, how to handle all the objections. This new salesperson wouldn't. So role playing it. Just so when they go onto that call, it's not their first time hearing some of these things.
Mm-hmm. That's a big part of the reason why we're by the time this podcast goes out, we'll be in our new office. The whole point of that is because what I realised was we were in a co-working space, which was brilliant. Like it was a great facility. But like a client would phone me and I would get up and excuse myself from the table because there's other people there who are working on something else or another business. They don't want to hear me. But it meant that my own team didn't then hear the way that I was like handling objections or even answering questions, because I'm taking the call over there. And we couldn't speak openly about clients, like any issues that we had, any like the solution to those issues. We weren't speaking openly about them because there's other people in there, you don't want to disturb them, but also there's some of the stuff that's a bit more sensitive. So we're like, actually, if we were all in one place and we could collaborate and talk and you could hear what I'm saying and I could hear what you're saying, I could pick up things that you're saying. I just think that type of thing is going to be massive for us. It does then get the question, you guys was it one day in the office a week?
Hybrid, yep.
What's your thoughts on, so for your new business that will come to, is that still what you think is like kind of the most effective way to run a team, or would you want those people to be working collaboratively together?
I don't know if it's necessarily the most effective. It's definitely the most effective for me personally, because I'm better at waking up early, laptop open, and just cracking on. 100% see the value of having people in the office so they can overhear conversations. What we did was we tried to manufacture that. Right. So in the office on a Thursday, that day was basically dedicated to all of the things that you need to do when you are in person. So things like meetings and process improvements. But whenever we had calls, every single call was recorded. Mm-hmm. And
every client call, every sales call?
Every client call, every sales call, every internal call, every one-on-one, every call was recorded. And we had Gemini create all the notes from those calls as well. So everybody could see what was going on in every part, which is really important, because when the person that's doing the selling hands over to the team that's doing the delivery, there's often a lot of nuance that's missed. Mm-hmm. And it's it's those little things in client services that can really bother clients, where they feel like they've explained something to someone and they're then passed on to someone else that doesn't fully get it. So we doubled down in ensuring that every single call was recorded and that people could see what was said. And then we would often just do coaching sessions where, if I, for example, had a call and I had a challenging objection from somebody that I had to face, and I faced it and I handled it well, I would maybe clip that video and share it with the team and be like, what do you think I did well here? Yeah. Or where do you think we could have improved? And we just had those open conversations to try and manufacture that in-person experience that you will get in the new office.
Okay, right. So you would then create those so would you have like, this is a sales call that converted, this is a sales call that didn't, and then review those two with the or did you not get into the like bogged down into that part?
Yeah, not necessarily that, not that particular example, but we would definitely, if a client converted on a sales call, that call would then get sent to the team that were doing the delivery, so they could, they knew exactly everything that client had told the salesperson.
Right. Okay. Cool. So it's you and Dave at that point.
Yep.
You're selling the 5-day course.
Yep.
that then a done for you
package
on the back?
It was a free 5-day challenge where you learned some stuff and then sold on to
a free 5-day challenge, right,
onto a coaching program. And then we moved into, then we did the whole branding exercise with Yatter. So back to the coaching. So I realized that coaching business is not a business that you can exit because it's based on me doing the teaching. And so I decided I wanted a business that I could sell. We went through the branding process with Yatter and decided that instead of doing the coaching, which I don't particularly enjoy, we're going to go on to doing done for you, right, and focus on done for you, because that's where the majority of the revenue and profit can come from. So we went through the branding process with Yatter and started it.
Right. So that's still just you and Dave?
It's just Dave and I at the beginning. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but we probably worked up, or we did work up to a point where I felt I was at capacity from a delivery perspective, unable to work on the business, too busy working in the business. And then, so we needed to hire. So we then hired Keir, who was employee number one. When I hired Keir, we did actually get office space in WeWork because I felt it was important. Keir was coming in with a little bit of marketing experience, but not an expert in paid ads by any means. I thought it was important for employee number one, for me and him to be together every day so that he could see exactly what I'm doing, what we're doing. And then we started the process of essentially getting me off the tools and me handing all the clients over to Keir. Yeah. And that was a process that doesn't happen overnight. It takes months because you've built a relationship with clients. You've, in some cases, worked with them for years. And you're then saying, I have to step away now. Nice. Here's somebody else.
Did you get pushback at that point?
We didn't actually get any pushback from anybody during any phase of me being removing myself from the client delivery. Because I think we were just really smart at how we did it.
Is that just in the position that we communicate to the client, like introducing someone before you disappear?
Yeah,
you've got a bit of
exactly. So it sort of starts off with like maybe CCing in the emails, CCing the other person, and then introducing them to say, Keir's working on your account with you. Client thinks, great, we've got 2 people working on the account now. And then slowly but surely, Keir or that employee will start to take over some of the more communication, and before the client knows it,
they've got to them first.
I'm not involved. And the reality is, if you can hire people that are better than you at doing the thing, they don't want to speak to you anyway. They want to deal with the person that's better.
I think for me, as soon as I see a client going to like Lauren before they come to me, I know that they're comfortable enough with that. And that's something that like always been on the end of the phone when you're the person who sold it can be quite difficult, that kind of transition to kind of into the delivery team, if you like. Yeah,
it's a challenge.
Where were the leads coming from? Where were they, like, was it all still coming through your personal brand, people coming to you at that stage when you were?
Yeah, so at that stage it was all personal brand for sure.
So talk to us about that. How did you build it? What were you doing? I imagine there was a system and a schedule, and like what did you do to build that?
So at that time I was like deep in content creation. So I was producing a lot of content, posting every day. I had a weekly vlog that went out, and
your weekly vlog, was that just like behind the scenes running the business?
Exactly that, yeah, behind the scenes running the business. It's maybe another story, but that took a tangent, and I started a phase where I was doing lots of outdoor Scottish content, and that was a completely different phase. That was probably pre-Yatter, which was one of the key reasons that I had to create a business brand. But
Well, you like doing like influencer type stuff or like
exactly.
Cool.
I essentially became an outdoor Scotland adventure influencer by
Right,
accident. And the reason that happened was I was creating business content. The engagement was okay. Like one weekend I created like this is what I did at the weekend,
right.
and it blew up. And I was like, I'll do it again, and it blew up. And I was genuine on Facebook. I was getting maybe like 200,000-300,000 views a week.
Mm-hmm.
It was wild, and built this whole thing up. But a couple of years down the line, you go, how much money have I actually made from? Yeah, all the views and stuff are great, but how much money has this made the business? And I was like, none, zero. So I went back to creating business content.
Did you ever try and monetize the actual Scottish content, like Visit Scotland, or like going to any of these like brands or whiskey distilleries, anything like that? Was that ever a plan to try to monetize that, or was it a case of no, we're trying to generate leads for Yatter, but we're doing it through this content?
Yeah, I if I'm being honest, I sort of half-assed both.
Right, cool.
So I did a little bit of work with like ScotRail. I did a video for ScotRail once, and they paid for it. And I did a couple of influencer things, and that was all nice and good. It's great for your ego. But when you sort of sit down with a piece of paper and you go, where's the business actually come from?
Aye.
And how much time am I spending on this content creation stuff? It just didn't add up.
Okay.
So I went back to creating business content. Engagement dropped, floored out, and I was thinking this is a total waste. So we need a new system to get leads into the business, and that's where I thought, right, I'm obsessed with productization of services and systems and processes. And I thought, right, we need to create a system and a process where we can get leads into the business consistently and predictably, because if you've got that, everything else downstream from that should be far more predictable and consistent. So
just to interject, you said productization of services. Can you talk to us about what you mean by productization of services for people who are watching?
Yeah, so a service business, any service you've got, typically the way that people will run those is everything's bespoke, and people will say it's bespoke and it's tailored to you and try and treat it like it's a value proposition. Like they'll tell you it's a benefit of that. But the reality is it's tailored or bespoke because typically behind the scenes it's total chaos and everything's different for every customer because there's zero process or system behind it or productization. So the way that I looked at it was, what's the difference between an agency, a service-based agency, and like a SaaS product?
Yeah.
And how can I create an overlap, or at least make Yatter look and feel and be run like a SaaS company, even though the service that we offer is not a product? Mm-hmm. Now, that had zero to do with tech. Like, we didn't have any tech in the business. There was not one piece of code attached to the business. But I constantly tried to keep the mentality of like a SaaS company versus an agency.
Yeah.
So that was everything down to like trying to call clients customers, or, we're not going to do all the stuff that other agencies do, like charge by time or, apply for all these different awards and all this sort of stuff. We're going to try and think and be like a SaaS company because they're the most effective and most valuable companies out there, right?
We had that with Lewis Kent from Lightbulb Media on the podcast. So another business, very similar to Yatter, very similar to Alleyoop, a performance marketing agency. And if you've not watched Lewis Kemp's podcast, go back. It's on our YouTube or Spotify. Once you've kind of finished Gavin's podcast, it's a brilliant episode. But Lewis was talking about the agency landscape of the award multi-award winning agencies, and how he said, we're not into all that, a lot of shite, buying a table at an event and given a wee shitty award. And I was like, what are you going to do if someone nominates you for an award? He went, someone did nominate us for an award. One of our clients nominated us for an award. I said, fucking unnominate us then. He was like, I don't want to get involved in that part of it. He's like, no, we're not. Yeah. That's not who we are.
Yeah, it's I don't know if clients know this, but most people that are getting these awards are paying for them.
Yeah.
Like, no. So I wasn't doing that. I don't know if it's because I'm tight or what, but I was like, both. No, yeah, we're not going and paying for awards just so we can say we're, put some random award logos on the website.
Right, okay. So back to you were saying about the productization and kind of building those systems. So that's something that you wanted to create an overlap between SaaS and agency, so that you had basically products to take to market that were service-based products.
Yeah. So that meant our offering was essentially, although a service behind the scenes, customer-facing was more a product. So you're going to get X, Y, Z.
Right, okay.
And go back to the original question around lead generation. So that meant that we had to try and create a lead generation system like we would if we were a SaaS product. And when I decided that I wasn't going to go down the route of content, we thought, right, the channel we're going to go down is paid advertising. And whatever it takes to make this work, we're going to do it.
Right.
And as you probably know, paid advertising for agencies or for marketing business is extremely challenging. It's expensive, it's competitive, lots of bad leads, exactly. But we went in there with the mentality of this is a long-term game. And I think if you are consistently buying ads over a long period of time, and yes, they need to work, the numbers need to work, but there starts to be this almost like halo effect where whatever room I would go into, networking event, generally in Scotland, someone would come up to me and say, I've seen your ad, or we've seen your ads are everywhere. Never heard from that business ever before, but they've seen our ads, and then they speak to me in person, then they become a customer. So, that happened because we had been advertising for years.
Yeah.
But in the early days, the results didn't come straight away, but we were committed to investing time and money into getting this channel to work because we know it could work. It just needs to take time to make it happen.
Practicing what you preach at that point as well, because that's something that when you can show your clients your data and say, well, this is how much we spent, how many leads we generated, how much business we generated from it. I imagine you're showing that you've done what you're asking your clients to do.
Great question to ask a client if they're wondering if it's going to work for them. It's like, well, how did you find us?
Right, okay.
You clicked on an ad, and it took you maybe a few months to book a call, but you did, and you became a customer, so they can start to see that. So you're practicing what you preach. Okay.
So you run the paid ads, and at what point does that become the main kind of lead source for you? Because you've still got before you done the paid ads, before you moved to the paid ads model, how many clients were you on at that point?
5 maybe.
Really? Right. Yeah. Okay. So these are the personal brand, the clients that come through personal brand, right? Okay. So five clients that have come to you direct. Then you start ads.
Yeah. And to be honest, then it just starts to take off. Probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months in. I'm going to say. And it's when it started to take off, and I got capacity that we then hired Kier.
Right.
And then, to be honest, it kind of feels like a blur because it's happened all so quickly, but we were off to the races at that point. We had a system that was bringing in leads. We had someone that was able to then deliver the results to the clients, and we had Dave who was doing the sales and handling the sales calls, which meant that freed up my time to be able to focus on almost exclusively running ads for Yatter and trying to bring in more leads, better leads.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say that at that point it was all about improving the systems and like working on the like smoothing out all those parts. But actually, you were then the lead gen behind the scenes.
Yeah, I focused solely on probably what I would call the internal systems. So when so you got in an advertising in our funnel, you had content that went out, so the actual ad that went out, the copy, the creative that went out. Then you had the email sequence after somebody had become a lead, and we had an email sequence that went on for something like 60 days.
Right.
So you got all those emails to write over time, and then you've got.
So it's over 60 days, how many emails?
Oh, it's pretty aggressive. 30 maybe, something like that. Okay, it was quite an aggressive sequence. It's going from sort of like daily, every 2 days, every 3 days, and then every week for the last few weeks. But then they would go into a weekly email sequence that we emailed every week.
Within that 60 days, was there ever was it ever offer led? Was it ever discount led? Was it ever free trial led? Was there ever any point where you go, you've still not signed up, so here's something.
Yeah, no, so every single thing was just pushing people into Dave's calendar, into the sales call. And we would try variations of, offers and things. It's quite funny. Sometimes I would, so they go into the sequence, there's no offers in that. Typically it would be like social proof, case studies, testimonials. And then when they go into the sort of weekly email, which I would write, Dave and I would have a laugh because oftentimes I would write offers and things that I wouldn't even run past him, and he'd get on a call with somebody and they go, "Are you still doing that offer where you offer, 500 quid ad spend or whatever?" And he's like, "What?"
Nah, you don't know what you're talking about.
So yeah, we used to have a laugh with that, but we would often run ads with different variations of different offers, but typically, customers wouldn't take you up on them. It would just be that would be the hook that gets them interested
100%.
enough, and then you have the conversation and you actually present an offer that is right for that business rather than the offer that they were hooked in by.
Yeah. It's like we see that quite a lot, like Shopify sites that we're running. It's like, there's a pop-up that gives you a percentage discount and people will close it off and then go through and buy. Even though they were on the website to buy there and then, they still automatically just go, like they click it off and disappear. So they're there at the point where they're there to buy, they've made the decision. So to your point, what you're saying is you put that offer out, but actually they've converted by that point anyway.
Yep. Yeah, okay. I think the analogy I like to use with agencies is that you're the doctor. So an agency or a customer comes to you with a problem, which is my other agency is not working. That was a common one, or we can't get this to work internally, or we're looking for somebody to scale it. It was generally like we knew the categories of customer that typically came in. So they're coming to us with a problem. It's then down to us as the doctor or the agency to diagnose what the actual problem is. So is it a problem with your ads? Is it a problem with your business model? Is it a problem with something else? And it was at that point that we can then say, well, actually, having looked at your ads, we think that there is actually a problem with your ads and we could do a better job. Here is the offer. By that point, they forgot about the thing that they saw in the email. Yeah, and we presented them with an offer or a solution that is right for them where they currently are in their journey.
Cool. So you were working exclusively on that, and then I imagine you're like expanding the capacity as the clients are coming in. Is that
exactly that? Yeah. So we sort of kind of worked out a bit of a formula on the number of clients that an account manager could take. Yep. And so when we reached sort of 80% of that capacity, then I would start the hiring process and bring someone else in. And we just repeated that over time. And as we started to get slightly bigger, so say employee number 3, 4, that's where my effort then went into the process of like client delivery. Okay. And ensuring that was locked down.
Would you still do the 80% start hiring now if you were to restart? We're going through a process just now where we feel like that's definitely been our process where we go, right, we'll get it to a certain point until we squeeze as much as we can and then we need to increase capacity. But for when this podcast goes out, we're planning to kind of try and like at least double the capacity of our business. That way we can then ramp up sales without putting too much pressure on the delivery side. So I'm like, actually, see if we trebled the size of our delivery or trebled the capacity of our delivery, could we be more proactive in the results that we're delivering? It could be, rather than having one person like fighting two fires, could we actually have 3 people who can work on those 2 problems, and then someone's actually got time to sit back and think and like properly work proactively to try and deliver. So that's something that we're trying to do now so that we can do exactly that to ramp up sales.
Yeah, well, I've always found whenever I've taken a leap to, a scary leap, hiring someone that I didn't really need or whatever it might be, the business has always grown within to that. So if I was to do it differently, the thing that I would do differently would be ensure you're clear on what the metrics are that you're measuring in order to make the hiring decision. So when we started off, I stupidly had said that the capacity of an account manager is typically 8 clients.
You told me this, and you told the client, you told the account manager.
Yeah. And
Never tell.
what that ended up being was like a mantra that we could not shake within the business, where whenever somebody got to 8 clients,
they were full.
They were full. Even if the clients were small, they were full regardless. And it made sense early on in the journey. That was typically what happened. But 3 years down the line, you've got things like AI, you've got tools, you've got new, better processes that
100%.
meant that the account managers could potentially take more. Some account managers take less because they're bigger clients, whatever it might mean. But that stuck with us, and I couldn't shake it. So I don't know if I would go and triple the business, but I would definitely be crystal clear on what that metric is that you're using to determine whether you need to hire.
Okay. Did you get down to like, this is the metric we're going to use, or were you always kind of hindered by that 8 client count or whatever it was?
I would say no. We changed the metric whereby we started time tracking.
Right.
That was something I never wanted to introduce. Time tracking. I don't like doing it myself.
Time tracking internally or time tracking for billing?
Internally.
Right,
yeah.
cool.
So I never liked the idea of it, but we introduced it, and actually it was one of the best things we did because it gave us so much data.
So give me some of the key insights that you'd built from that, because it's something that it's actually something that I was against and Vivian introduced, like, in spite of me. And he can then go, actually, this client who's paying a low rate that's been a bit of a pain in the arse this week, we actually spent more time on that client than this client who is paying way more as a probably a more important client to the agency.
Yeah.
And being able to see that data is quite important now.
Yeah, so a couple of key things that spring to mind were we had a traffic light system for clients where we thought every week we would mark them green, yellow, or red based on where they were at. Were they happy? Were the results good, etc.?
Okay, so that's like on the actual client results.
Yeah.
So we do the very same thing.
Yeah. So we would then be able to see, well, if somebody's marked red, how much time have we spent on them?
Yeah.
And if we'd spent no time on them and they were red, it's like, well, why? That raises a flag. So that was really interesting. The second thing that was interesting was I felt like we were in a sort of constant battle of capacity. People saying they're busy, people saying they're not busy, whatever it might be. And that just eliminated it all because we were able to clearly see how much time were people spending on things. And that worked in the team's favour because
I was going to ask you, how did the team find it? Because people think when you introduce time tracking that you don't trust them, you want them to track their hours because you think they're not doing anything. But actually it's to try and do exactly that, improve process, see what, like, how you can improve the efficiencies.
It worked in their favour because they're saying, no, look, I'm really busy. And I could say, okay, you are actually really busy. Let's try and work on reducing the amount of work that you've got on. Yeah. So it worked in everyone's favour. And I was probably a little bit nervous at implementing it because of my own maybe limiting beliefs on time tracking. But actually, when we implemented it, the team worked great.
Did you track your time?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
So talk to me about that. Why? Is that purely so that you had you were able to work on the business, or?
Well, I think a founder's role in the business is different to people that are doing the client delivery work. In that, a founder's job, the most effective thing that a founder could be doing on a random Tuesday afternoon might be playing golf.
Oh, it's controversial.
But how do you track that?
Nah, you don't.
And if your team start to see that you're playing golf on a Tuesday afternoon, for example, or you're having lunch at a fancy restaurant and spending company time and money on that, that can be hard to justify.
100%.
And actually, you don't need to justify it as the owner, because it's down to you to determine whether that's the most effective use of your time.
So throwing back to another podcast, another previous podcast, I've mentioned the brand already, but Andrew Dobby, who was on the podcast from Made Brave, he has a clear desk policy, or he tries to have a clear desk policy where every day he goes in and his like kind of tasks for the day should be 0. And it's purely because what he says, he's always busy. He always finds things and there's always things for him to do. But his goal is to not have meetings scheduled, not have a to-do list for the next day. He should be walking in every day going, don't have anything to do, but let me just go in and just make things better, make things more comfortable, support people, help people who are like, and be able to kind of, because he's like, if I'm sitting there with a backed up list and I'm 9 to 5 back-to-back calls or whatever, he's like, I'm not able to support my team, I'm not able to deliver for clients, I'm not able to spot opportunities or like spot bottlenecks and try and improve the actual efficiency of the business.
Yeah, and I love that. I tried my best to do that, but you find yourself. I like to describe it. You've got the architect and you've got the firefighter. It's like the architect, Danny Hoko, another person you had on the guest. The architect is able to look at everything from a high, strategically.
Yeah.
Like, what's the most effective thing we're doing here? They can step in if required, but generally they have a step back and they're looking at it, bird's view. Firefighter is in deep, sleeves rolled up. They're putting out fires. They're smothered in smoke, unable to be able to take their head up and actually see what's going on. And I think as a founder, yes, your role is sometimes just you have to just go and firefight.
Yeah.
But you have to try your best to be in that architect role where you can look at the business. And a word I like to use is design the business. Like, as the owner, the founder, you can design the business however you like and design your day however you like. And if you can get yourself out, have that clear desk policy so that you don't have a massive to-do list that you need to work through, and you have that free time, you're then being led by curiosity and interest and inspiration as opposed to problems, negative stuff, firefighting. It's a completely different energy that you can then bring to the organization, which makes it better for everyone.
Okay. You exited the business how long ago?
Well, we sold in the day before Rachel Reeves' first budget, and I then had an earn-out period till July.
That was it. So talk to us about that, because you told me that story. So why was it the day before Rachel Reeves' first budget?
So
is that now one of your deadlines or one of your conditions?
Yeah. So basically, when we were going through the sales process, it got to a point where Rachel Reeves' first budget was coming up, and everyone will remember the sort of horror headlines that was all over the news at that point. And some of the key ones were, the entrepreneur's relief, or business asset disposal relief might be scrapped. Capital gains tax might be going up to, I think 39% was one of the, the top scary ones. And it got to the point where we're getting closer to this deadline, and I basically said, we need to get this deal done by this budget. Otherwise, there's a likelihood that I'm pulling out. Because if you're going, there's no business asset disposal relief and capital gains is 39%, there's no way I'm selling a business when I have to give 50% or 40% to the government. No, not happening. So thankfully that wasn't the case. But that was, these things have to go through your head. And so we said the deal has to be done by the budget. And we finally got the deal done 1 minute to midnight the night before the budget.
Mental.
It was chaos. And one of the best phone calls I ever had was from my lawyer at 10 past midnight saying, done. You can go to bed now. It's
really?
done.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the process quickly. So you decide that you're going to sell how long before you sold? Like, was that always the plan? Was it something that you thought, actually, this is what, like, did you set out to sell? Like,
yeah.
Or was that a very mindful, purposeful decision to go, right, we're going to sell, so let's implement things so that we can sell?
Yeah, so day one, I knew that I wanted to exit the business. I didn't have a timeline in place, but I knew that we're building this business to sell. So every decision that we made was based on the premise of this is going to be sold to somebody. What would that somebody want? Okay. And I knew that the person likely to buy it is going to be another agency bigger than us that wanted a paid advertising department. Right. So I had that in my mind, and that meant that every decision I made was based on, would this seller in the future want this thing or not? Okay. Nice. It makes decision making really easy. Yeah. So it's a great filter to be able to make decisions. And it was we were going, and then it was about a year and a half before we sold that I thought, now's the right time. Why though? Because you're only 31. So that's one question for me, right? Is like, say, we share a business, like maybe one day. Yeah. Talk to us about I know there were certain things in your life as well, like big milestone things that happened for you, but like what drove it for now? Why now? I think that there was three things that sort of all came together at the same time. One was my wife was pregnant. We were having my daughter. That just felt like a good time to to make a change.
Was it make a change or was it cash in? Because that's another thing is, what was the motivating factor?
Yeah,
was it actually I want paid out on this, or was it because
No, it's not cash. It wasn't cash. There's times where I was thinking to myself, like, I'm a tight person. I'll happily admit that. And I was saying to myself, I don't know whether I would operate better from a place of needing to generate cash or having cash and seeing that cash go down as you spend it.
right, okay. So you might when you're chasing the money,
Yeah.
versus when you've got a lump sum and you're having to now, whereas we're going to come on to, you're now building a business with a pot of cash.
Exactly, and you're seeing your cash sort of come down. So
Mike Welsh.
Yeah.
So Mike Welsh, who will be on the podcast eventually. I actually started this podcast to try and get Mike Welsh on the podcast.
Yeah.
But I spoke to him when he was on another podcast, and I asked him about the difference between running and starting a business from nothing versus running and starting a business from a £50 million exit or something like that. And I said, you've got a huge amount of money. What did you do differently? And he said, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
He went, I still ran the second business the same way I did the first business. He said, the only thing that I done differently, and this was on Mike McGrail's podcast, so tell that we shout out. He said the only thing that he done differently was he hired better people faster.
Yeah.
More expensive and better people faster. He was like, but we still had the same mentality of the startup with no money, even though we had money.
Yeah, I would say I probably have that exact same mentality.
Right. Okay.
And it's nice to hear that somebody else has said that same thing, because I was at an event recently with the chief exec of Octopus Energy, and before Octopus, I think he'd sold a company, and he said, when you're selling a company, you think you've built a company to here, and you think that you're going to start your next business from here.
Yeah.
But actually, no, you start right down at the bottom. And I got to be honest, I think that for me, that was part of the motivation to sell, was I'd been in this world now for 10 years or so, and I felt like I'd lost the fire in my belly, and I wanted that back.
Right.
You know, that like the early days of launching a business, having to come up with everything from scratch, like a blank piece of paper. And that was what got my fire, the fire in the belly going.
Did you do 3 things? Was your daughter?
Yeah, so daughter, so there's the, sort of 10 years in the industry, feeling like I needed a change. And the other one is, I think I just wanted to be able to prove myself in another industry.
Really, right, okay.
So you'll know, with clients, you'll see lots of different types of businesses. You'll see ones that do well, ones that don't do well. You'll be able to see ones that are doing well, and you think, oh, I wish I'd done that. Aye. Or if I went into that industry, I could just do it a bit better. And I feel like I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it in one industry and go into another industry and do it as well. I just love the game. I thought after I sold my company, I thought 6 months off, definitely. I'm just going to relax. And we went on a holiday for 3 weeks, and I came back, and I just found myself gravitating back to the desk, because I just love it. I can't get enough of the creation of something and being able to take something that's in your head, the vision and idea, and see it through to fruition.
So we're going to throw forward to the next episode, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to do another episode with us on business number 2.
Yep.
It'd be quite good to get you back at regular points throughout that, and you can document that journey. I know you're going to be doing that anyway. So if anyone isn't following you, you're already doing that. You've started posting content again, and you can see you've got the fire back. But can you, because I probably know too much about the new business, so in your words, you tell us what you can at this stage about the new business, the plan, what you're thinking moving forward.
Yeah, so the new business is direct to consumer in the healthcare space. And that, for me, is sort of combining a couple of passions. I've always loved the idea of having a B2C business.
Why?
I've just seen the scalability of them. So running ads for D2C businesses or B2C, D2C businesses, the scalability, if you can get great product market fit, then your business can go like this. And in a world of AI, I think that you can do so with a relatively lean team as well. So I've always wanted to cut my teeth into that. healthcare, really passionate about health and fitness, and I feel like there's a lot of, not necessarily disruption, but I think it's an industry where there's going to be so much change over the coming years with, again, AI. You've got some of the new drugs that are coming out, or I think the world of health is just going to massively change for the better over the coming years.
Yeah.
So that gets me excited, and to be able to think I can create a business within that world, it's just really exciting. So, D2C, healthcare, and I'm keeping it under wraps at the moment purely because I want to almost build something semi-privately. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there'll no doubt be a day where I come out and say, this is what I'm building and this is how we're doing it and this is my thinking behind it. But right now I'm sort of, it's like when you have a baby and you don't really want to share pictures of it and you want to sort of have your little family bubble for a while.
Yep.
That's kind of how I feel about it right now.
Okay. So is that a case of you want to get it right? Is it a fear of putting it out, or is it like, are you actually just enjoying being able to?
No, genuinely enjoying it. I will quite happily come on this podcast if this business fails and I lose every penny I've invested in it and tell everybody that that's what's happened.
Right, okay.
Because
hopefully we don't hold you to that. Hopefully we hold you to the complete opposite of that, where we're getting you on regularly as it goes.
I hope so, but I have no problem. I think, there's a funny thing. In the first couple of businesses or first iterations of the business, I would have been terrified to get my name out there in case I got business wrong, business failed, 100%. Whatever.
I just remember talking a lot when I left Global and was doing this like without telling anyone. And I was like, if I go public with it, it needs to work. And she was like, what are you talking about? Going public, like as if you're fucking Kim Kardashian or something. Like, you're not, like, it's not that important. But I didn't want to be like, I'm going to do this. And then in like 3 months later, I was like, I'd taken another job or whatever. And it's purely, that was ego for me. It was like wanting to protect the kind of, done that, it worked. So I like that. And I like the fact that you're going to try, you're going to build it and like be quite open about all that.
Yeah, and I would quite happily tell people that it's failed if it's failed and what I've learned as a result. Because the reality is I'll just go again.
Okay.
And I genuinely believe that perhaps because we've gone through so many iterations of the business model and name as we've spoken about, that business is just a game of iteration. Mm-hmm. Like you go out into the market originally with something, and that just changes over time, and until eventually you find something that works really well, and you can then double down on that. And I think that as entrepreneurs, we should treat ourselves like that as well, where you take a business to market, it might not work. That's fine. You're an entrepreneur. You iterate and you go again with something else.
Here's a question. So, as a 31-year-old dad who has an amount of money from the sale of this first successful exit, and you've said that you're tight. If that pot of money is, say, let's say as a percentage, if you like, have you said this percentage is my nest egg or my safety net that I'm not going to, and have you said actually this is the percentage that I'm going to invest in this new business? Like, have you got that yet? Have you got, or have you went, no, like this is it? Just whether you've went, actually, I'm going to take out this amount of money because this amount of money will keep us.
Yeah, I've done the maths on how much money do I think I need to survive, a year or 2 years, and we've kept that aside and invested everything else, really. Right. Okay. Right. But I have no problem taking that investment back out if I need to invest it into my own ventures. Yeah. Because I believe that I have better control of turning, £1 into £3 than the stock market, for example. So I would, my wife will hate me for saying this, but I would drain that money down to zero if I had to.
Really? Right, okay. That's interesting, because when you say when you frame everything and say you're tight or you're careful or you're like, to be able to say, actually, no, I'm looking to, like, we're going to go all in on this.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it doesn't.
Do you see this business needing investment and like?
Well, I would like to not invest.
Really? Right, okay.
I'd get external investment. Mm-hmm. So I'm prepared to, and I have put money into it. And I'd love to keep it that way. I think one of the things I'd like to try and do is, through the knowledge of marketing and advertising that I've got, is be able to create a business where the payback window on our customers is that it can all just be reinvested and grow the business quickly but organically.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means I have to put that money back in to keep it going, that's totally fine. But I'd rather not take external investment because I don't want to be diluted. And I've never done it before. And I've never taken investment. Yatter was obviously mine and self-funded. And so, there'd be people watching shaking their head probably going, that's the wrong way of looking at it. But the way that I see it is I see a lot of people that all they seem to be doing is raising money rather than making money.
Yeah.
So I'd rather try and create a business that can make money. And then, if we need to get investment to speed that up, we've got the proven funnel that's profitable and making money, but we just want money in there to speed things up, then that's a different story. But
I'm already for every pound I'm putting in, I'm getting X back. So for every pound you put in, you can expect that back as well.
Yeah.
Right? Brilliant. You are creating more content. You're documenting this journey. Where should people find you and follow you? Reach out to you?
I mean, I'm everywhere at the moment. My handle is at Mr. Gavin Bell or mrgavinbell.com, so they can find me all over the place.
LinkedIn, you've been pretty active on LinkedIn lately, and all putting loads of. That's probably where I spend more time, but the content you've been putting out on there seems very deliberate. Seems like you're back on it. So people follow you there, connect with you, and reach out to you if they've got a bit of value from this podcast. If you did get a bit of value from this podcast, please share it with someone who you think would also get a bit of value. Connect with me, give me a bit of feedback, connect with Gavin, and we will see you on the next episode of the Business Playbook.